Orange is the new black as the Netherlands stun South Africa. They beat them by 38 runs to give this World Cup another upset, possibly bigger than the one that we saw between Afghanistan and the other England. Of course, that was. I'm losing my head completely. That kind of result that's shocked all of us. Take a look at that match summary, and it tells you what the Netherlands have achieved here in Dharamshala. They scored 245 for 8 in 43. Remember, a rain-curtailed game. South Africa managing only 207. It could have been a bigger loss if it wasn't for that last wicket partnership where we saw Keshav Maharaj score a few runs, 40 of 37, that is 42.5. South Africa all out. Well, I checked the weather in Dharamshala on Google. It said 13 degrees. Yes, it was cold, but South Africa were frigid, cold, feeble, timid. Got any more synonyms?
All of the above. All of the above. But let's just say how brilliant the Netherlands were.
This World Cup is not for the faint-hearted.
Not at all. No, it's superb. Absolutely superb. And you think back to what we talked about at the halfway stage, those little innings at the back end, from Van der Merwe in particular, and that innings of the captains, just getting them to that score where they felt like they could possibly defend. They would have had some belief, but man, I mean, yep, South Africa were poor at times, but the Netherlands were brilliant. They had their plans worked out, their bowling plans were sorted, their captain was outstanding, and they fielded, for the most part, barring that Bustelator drop, very, very well.
It was Afghanistan who beat England, now I remember. And the Netherlands, of course, shocking South Africa. This one's got to be bigger?
I'd have to say it is. And what I loved was the fact that the game just changed. You know, if you look at it, the game turned in that last 15 overs of the Netherlands innings. Yeah. And, you know, and you have to say Van der Merwe, a former South African international who's played 26 matches for them, he turned it round. You know, he was a spark. And of course, the captain, Scott Edwards, is absolutely brilliant. But then he comes back with the ball, takes 2 very important wickets, sets it up again. And it's just an amazing, amazing match.
Well, you know, the distance between Dharamshala and Amsterdam, according to Google once again, is 6,022 kilometers. But a happy tremor must have been felt back in Amsterdam. I'm sure, even if it's a smallish cricket-following community, this is a special, special day for them.
Yeah, it is. And it's a community that's growing and growing. I mean, we were there, I was there last year for the England-Netherlands fixtures. And the crowds were brilliant. Yes, a lot of them were English, but the crowds were outstanding. And it is a cricket community in the Netherlands that is really growing. They've got more and more cricketers coming through from a young age. They've got women involved in cricket now. They've got women's teams at a lot of the clubs there. They're producing more and more grass surfaces. I found out now there's 7 grass pitches in the Netherlands now. So that's another good sign that they're moving forward. They're well coached, well drilled. And I think the players that have come out of the English setup have certainly helped them, you know, go a long way. But then you get those local players in as well. And that is the greatest performance from the Dutch cricket team in their history. You know, we said what's a great result for them at this tournament? It is a win and maybe a big scalp. Well, they just got their big scalp and their first win for this tournament.
Yeah, well, Joy, you spoke about how in this country they don't really play for money. This profession doesn't give them big money, but this has got to mean the world for them.
It has got to be.
Come to the World Cup. This is their 3rd ever win in a World Cup. They beat Namibia 20 years ago, Scotland in 07 in the West Indies, and it's taken 20 years for them to get 3 big wins. This has got to be the biggest. It could be the kind of spark that could ignite a glorious future for them.
No, absolutely. And I think they'll take so much from this win. You know, I was just looking at the history books and saying, there's so much history involved with the game. Who is the Netherlands coach? The Netherlands coach is Ryan Cook. Who's his father? Jimmy Cook. Jimmy Cook played the first ball for South Africa when he walked out after apartheid.
Wow.
20 years of this. So Jimmy Cook was there. So Ryan Cook has had a very interesting history because he's player obviously realized that he's probably not going to be play at the top level for South Africa, became a coach. So currently the fielding coach of the Sunrisers Hyderabad as well. So he comes to the IPL. So he has a bit of understanding of Indian conditions, was a Bangladesh coach for quite a while, assistant coach for a while, so knows conditions around here. And he basically, the other very interesting thing is, he basically belongs to that, Gary Kirsten is one of his mentors, belongs to that school of thought. So it's all players first, putting players there, and that's the one thing that you have. If you have coaches like Gary Kirsten, you're going to have a very harmonious team.
Yeah.
They're always going to play better than the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
And I think that's something you saw there today as well.
Simon, while this will be a rude shock for the Proteas, this story is more about the Netherlands winning than it is about South Africa losing.
Yeah, and they took the game away from them. And when you look at that, where are they now? They sit in 9th place, just one win, just behind Australia. That net run rate is still a little down for them, courtesy of those two fairly hefty losses in the first couple of games. But, if they walk away from this tournament having beaten South Africa, maybe they sneak one over Sri Lanka or Afghanistan or Bangladesh. 2, maybe 3 wins in the tournament would be an enormous result for them. And they've got the biggest scalp they've ever had at a World Cup now. And so, South Africa's net run rate takes a bit of a hit. They lose to a team where they possibly coming into the tournament thought they would have beaten and should have beaten. So it is a great story, and it's a brilliant day for the Netherlands and the Dutch cricket. It's something that, those players will now remember for the rest of this tournament and for a long, long time to come. For some of them, they're probably playing their last World Cup.
While we will talk about what South Africa did wrong, this result also makes India happy. It makes England happy, makes Australia happy, New Zealand happy as well.
Absolutely. All the countries there, because that means that South Africa, which was running away at this point in time, suddenly is a speed breaker. They've hit a speed breaker. They've stopped out there. They're in 3rd place. And this is not, again, what's the important thing about this result? Just like England and Afghanistan, this is not a match they expected to lose.
Yeah.
So when you look at your card before a tournament, you look at those 9 matches and says, okay, these are going to be tight matches, but they expect to win this match. So when you hit a speed breaker on matches that you expect to win, then it just changes, it upsets a lot of things.
Yes, on cricket shows, intent is often used very loosely, but clearly at the heart of what Netherlands have done today, the intent was there, the fire, the hunger, the will to push a much bigger team was evident in everything they did.
Yeah, it took them a little while with the bat.
Yeah.
And as I said, the Edwards, Van der Merwe, Aryan Dutt, those 3 innings in particular, they were in trouble. They were looking like being bowled out for 150, 160, 170. So those 3 innings, and from the time Roelof van der Merwe came to the crease and was aggressive, and he wasn't always pretty, but that didn't matter. He didn't need to be pretty. He showed that intent. He showed that aggressive nature. And all of a sudden, South Africa, they sat back a little bit and didn't keep going hard. That gave Edwards the confidence, and then follow that with Aryan Dutt. What did he, 22 off 8 or 9 balls?
8 balls.
So those little innings at the back end really helped Netherlands. And when they go into that dressing room at the halfway stage, they start to go, yeah, good. This is a score we can compete with. All of a sudden, they get everything right with the ball up front. I think Scott Edwards, look, it's a tough one, isn't it? When you go to Scott Edwards and say, captaincy, runs, and a win, do you take the player of the match? Or do you give it to Roelof? Because he kind of started it.
Yeah, he was a
Who
spark.
should it be?
He was the spark. Well, if I'm sitting in that commentary box and it's my choice, I'm going to go with this man. He bowled brilliantly, fielded well, and scored 29 off 19 to get them to that point. I know 78 not out looks better on paper. I'd be giving it to him.
Also would have offered a lot of intel on the South Africans.
Yeah.
No, he would have. But I think more than anything else, he just told them, he showed them they can be beaten. They can be aggressive against them. And I think that was the single most important thing. And the word he has used out here, intent. Yep. Intent was the one thing that you didn't see. They had a limp effort before that. It was a lackluster limp effort. Suddenly he comes out there, counterattacks. Everyone else around him say, hey, these guys can be beaten. These guys look a bit in shock. Everyone starts counterattacking. Aryan Dutt starts hitting them. Then they get a couple of wickets. Again, he starts it off. I would give it to him. I definitely.
Yes, he got the wicket of the captain Temba Bavuma and then got Van der Dusen to play that reverse it. We'll talk about that. But somehow his presence seemed like the other younger players looked at Roelof van der Merwe and said, this guy believes we can win, and so maybe we can.
Yeah, and I think that's a role he plays in that side. Probably a role he plays in any side, whether he's in county cricket or at the international level. He is that type of character. You see the aggression, the excitement when he gets a wicket, the excitement when others get a wicket.
Yeah.
I think we saw a Logan van Beek wicket, and he was the first one in there, and he's got the double fist pump going. The veins are popping out of the head. He's excited. He knows what it's like to lose, but he also knows what it takes to win. And I think those young players in that dressing room will be, that whole squad will be looking to him as a senior player, as a senior pro. Scott Edwards will be looking to him to set the tone as far as some of their things are concerned. The fielding, the aggression, the positive nature. They'll be looking for him to do that, and he's provided a lot of it today.
Roelof van der Merwe's reaction after that drop catch of Miller, Bastille dropping a sitter, really. His reaction after that just told you that he believed they could win this game, and they had it in the bag.
No, I think he could. And at that point in time, you're wondering whether this is the match, this is the break that South Africa needed.
Yep.
And it didn't happen. And I think they stuck to their guns. But I think what you also did was because of those extra 30, 40 runs, in the end, towards the end of the Netherlands innings, it's a run rate pressure that got them in the end as well.
Yep.
Finally, Miller had no option but to keep taking risks. Because once that run rate climbs above 8, 8.5, as we talked about in the 35th over, by that time it's already 30th over, it's already gone to 8. And by that time, you can't afford to sit back in your crease and start playing it out.
They needed 100 at that stage when Miller got out. Was it the pressure of the run rate, as he said, or did he rush into that shot? Should he have waited?
Look, it wasn't a great option. I think he'll look back at it and think swinging across the line to a length ball, not a great option. Normally he would hit a fuller ball in that direction, and he'd get most of them. You know, he's a very clean striker. So I think it was just the wrong ball, the wrong length to be doing that too. But he had been put under pressure because no one else was there. They'd lost all those key wickets up front. He was in a situation where he thought, I've got to do something to unsettle what's happened. And when you look at the run rate through that, losing 6 wickets up to the 30th over, and they were never above the run rate.
Yep.
What they need, 5.7?
5.7 is what they needed at the start.
Yeah, at the start. So they were never above that run rate. So that's where the Netherlands bowlers, I think, did a terrific job restricting them up front and pushing that run rate higher and higher. And that then, in turn, puts pressure on players to score.
Joy, it's also quite funny how your actions depend on your opposition. Would he have offered a little more respect to a bigger opposition? Would Miller have said, let me wait? Did he get too far ahead of himself trying to play that shot?
No, I don't think so. Because see, he was looking at, there was not that much batting to follow. He chose the wrong ball to exercise aggression, but he had to be aggressive at that stage. There's no doubt at all. He just chose the wrong ball, the wrong shot. You can call it a lot of other things, but he had to. There was just, the time was running out for them.
Yes, a little more on Roelof van der Merwe. Joy Bhattacharjya has been on the receiving end of van der Merwe's antics, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. Somerset comes out here. KKR playing in Hyderabad, lot of support. He whacks 3 sixes, takes a couple of wickets, and suddenly we are out of the Champions League. But he's that kind of cricketer. He's that kind of cricketer, and he has it. And I was just thinking about all these. What I love about these associate nations, because we had Ryan Tendushkarte with me, is that they play a very different brand of cricket. Because okay, let me explain it to you. It's like a second lease of life for them.
Yeah.
They go, they want to play for their own country. They realize they're not good enough to either play or they're not good enough to play for a longer time. They forget those dreams and they say, this is like a second chance of playing international cricket. It's a huge thing. So the high that he gets, the high that he plays on is a very different kind of high.
Yeah, it was a complete team effort. And this bowling card will tell you, it wasn't just Roelof van der Merwe. Aryan Dutt bowled a maiden to start the innings that really set the tone, perhaps seeded that doubt in the minds of South Africans. Van Beek 3 wickets, 1 for Ackerman as well. Paul van Meekeren bowled really well, that channel outside the off stump. Bastille chipping in with 2 as well. So everyone can put their hand up and said, I contributed.
Yeah, and the way that Scott Edwards manoeuvred the bowlers, I think, getting Ackerman in early as well. He noticed that Aryan Dutt was getting a little bit of turn. He thought Quinton de Kock was struggling to get away a touch as well. And then bringing Ackerman in, little glove onto the shoulder, that gets rid of Quinton de Kock. Little moments in that game where I think he read it very well. He understood the surface, understood what was needed at the time, and he changed those bowlers round at the right times, and they performed for him. And every bowling change that he made basically worked in some way, shape or form, either for that bowler or for the guy at the other end. When
we went in for the Cricbuzz Combox at the 15 over mark, Joy, we noticed how 10 of those 15 were bowled by the spinners, and we all thought the spinners will bowl 27 of these 43, but that didn't happen. So clearly, he didn't go in with one set plan.
No, absolutely. He adjusted his plans the moment he had taken the early wickets. They were back in the defensive. Then he's not going to give them 6 hitting balls. They're coming back with the medium pacers. And they have that ability. And just look at that. What you see there is the number of dot balls out there. 3, then you have 4, 7, 2, 9, 3, 12, 15, 14, 15 dot balls out there. And that's a huge percentage. Add to that the number of wickets. That's a lot of dot balls. And I think that is where the match swung around. From 8 to 12, 4 wickets, 14 more dot balls. That's a match.
Yes, they were 39 for 2 when Temba Bavuma got out, and at number 4 came the man who's hit the fastest 100 in World Cup history, and we all thought shouldn't be a problem, and then he gets an absolute peach of a delivery from that man Paul.
Yeah.
It didn't keep low.
It didn't keep low. He made it look like it kept low with his actions, but it's hit the top of off stump.
Yep.
And it was a terrific delivery, really was. And that's what you want from Paul van Mechelen. He's another one who's quite aggressive, but just hitting the top of off stump. And they didn't allow Aiden Markram to settle into that innings at all. 9 overs, 2 for 40. He bowls generally the tough overs, has to bowl at the back end of the innings as well. He's a real competitor. He really is. And he's been on an incredible journey. I mean, we've talked about it before here, driving Uber Eats vehicles just to get himself around. He's been at a couple of different counties. He's had teams that didn't want him at the end of seasons, couldn't get a contract. He wanted to play all 3 formats, so he had to shift counties. So, he's another guy that's been a journeyman, I guess, a journeyman cricketer. And these are the moments that he will remember for the rest of his life. Yeah.
Could this be a life-changing result for Netherlands and their players? Should this be? If yes, how?
Look, difficult to say. I think it's a great result for them. And I think what they have to do is exactly as Simon was saying, look at the other teams and say, perhaps we've got a couple of other chances, opportunities to win out here. Let's focus. The tournament is not over. Edwards was very interesting. I was looking at his interviews before. And he said the 2 things the words that he didn't want to use. First is he came in and said, we want to make the semi-finals. Yep. He didn't say we want to win a few. He wanted to make the semi-finals because he wanted to set a particular bar for his team. The second thing that he said is, I'm not going to hide behind the word associate nation anymore.
Yeah.
I'm here in the World Cup. I'm here because I deserve. I've come out here. So the word associate and therefore I'm different from all the other people, it does not matter. And this is interesting because it shows a particular mindset. So I think they're already on that journey. The point is, of course, if you look at it in real terms, smaller communities, look, there are 5, 6, 7,000 people playing cricket or interested in cricket in the Netherlands. We have 1.4 billion. So finally, those factors will come into play. But at this point in time, with whatever little they have, they're punching hugely above their weight.
The one thing you do want, I think, is the government, perhaps. In these sorts of situations, what you're telling the government is, we need more funding. We need some help. Don't just think about football and hockey, because they're the 2 big ones in the Netherlands. Don't just think about football and hockey. Here we are on a world stage, taking down one of the world's best teams. Yep. Just a little bit more funding, a little bit more opportunity for young boys and girls at schools to play cricket. I know land is not the easiest thing to come by. Having cricket fields and land is not the easiest thing to come by in the Netherlands, but this just shows that it can be done. And so maybe we just need a little more help.
Rookie question for the both of you, on behalf of fans who might ask, what does more funding mean, and what will that money, or can that money be used for? Is it just land? Is it player salaries to get more people to play?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's land, it's player salaries. See, once you put money into an ecosystem, what happens? You get players. It's not just the players who get money. It's assistant coaches, it's physios, it's trainers, it's, more clubs come into play. Yep. So what happens is, once you put money into an ecosystem, whether you're giving it to the club directly, whether you're giving it to the board, the money starts trickling down. Yep. And the moment it trickles down, the entire ecosystem benefits. When the ecosystem benefits, I mean, I'll tell you a little story. Vikramjit Singh, you're talking about Vikramjit Singh and Aryan Dutt. Who coaches them? A chap called Amit Onial. Amit Onial has played for Punjab in the IPL, obviously has played Ranji Trophy cricket out here. But it was worth his while to go there in the Netherlands and start coaching. And these 2 Indian kids were there. He started coaching them. So these are little things that once players are coming from outside, Simon Doull has played out there. Yeah. If people can come in, more influences, good players, you're also learning the tricks of the trade. So I think all that is what they mean. And look, the ICC does give you a certain amount of money. Yep. At some point in time, they had an ICC league, so they were getting about $1 million a year. Or no, it was about $600,000-$700,000 a year. So how the ICC now decides to give the grants to smaller countries is what's going to be vital.
And it's results like this one and the one on Sunday that tell us that, thank God it's not an 8-team World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. And the qualification process works. They play hard cricket in that qualification process. They have to find a way to win, to get through. So they're battle-hardened, even though 3 or 4 of those players weren't there for that tournament. So they understand how to win. They understand tournament play. And those little things help you come through to, to this World Cup. And as long as it's a 10-team World Cup and there are qualification processes, if you have to go through them, one of the carrots for them, I know that there's an incentive. These are based on world rankings, but there is an incentive if you finish in the top 5 or top 6 or something like that, you're almost guaranteed for the next one. So, these are the little incentives that you want to be playing for as well.
The inner dialogue changes. Joy, you've been a part of teams that have won big and lost big. But a result like this can somehow make them look at themselves differently.
Yeah, I think definitely that this tournament, they'll look at themselves differently. They'll think they have the ability to beat at least quite a few other teams. They're not going to go in and look at any team and say that, we've lost the match before we started. That's certainly not going to happen. But I think the way you look at them is also to say that long term, this is not something that's happened by accident. It's also a lot of coaching has gone into it. And if you've been watching, throughout in the field, you've seen these little pieces of paper. So they've been looking at their bowling plans. They've been doing whatever they can to try and win this. And they've got the result. So
I'd love to see what's written on that piece of paper. Would it be matchups? Would it be some motivational quote? I wonder what it was. Because kept looking at it.
I think it will be batters' weaknesses. What's the best deliveries to bowl to this certain batter? And Max O'Dowd's in charge of that bit of paper. It's a very vital bit of paper by the looks of it. I think it'll be, exactly that. What are the batters' strengths and weaknesses? And who and what should we bowl to them? It'll be as simple as that. There'll be simple things, but this is where we should bowl. This is the sort of fields we should set for these certain players. 5
other teams will now be looking at the Netherlands very differently. Not scared, but they will respect them a little more after tonight.
Look, I'd hate to think that South Africa didn't respect them going into this match, and I'd hate to think that every team in the World Cup didn't respect the other team. You can go in there with confidence, as long as you don't go in with arrogance that, this is just the Netherlands, we're going to beat them. And I don't think any team would walk into any game in this World Cup thinking that, because they know. And if they didn't know before, they certainly know after Afghanistan and today the Netherlands. I mean, those 2 games have proven that on any given day, any of these teams are good enough. If you have a bad day and they have a good day, you're going to get rolled over.
And Joy, how quickly things change. South Africa were cruising after those 2 big wins, 2 wins by a margin of 100 plus runs. They beat Australia and then Sri Lanka. And then to come here and to face a result like this has to be a really, really bitter pill to swallow.
It is. It's a really bitter pill to swallow. But actually, can I be honest with you? I think South Africans would rather take it here in the tournament than later on. I think they've taken it here. This is a shocker they've had, And this is a shocker. Though I have to say that normally upsets are when the top team plays really badly. I think here it was much more about Netherlands playing really well rather than South Africa playing particularly badly. I wouldn't say they were great, but South Africa wasn't terrible either. No, it's just the Netherlands just raised their game. And I think that's what you've got to look at from here.
Maybe one bad shot, the one from Van der Dusen that reversed it, perhaps uncalled for. What are the lessons for South Africa from this loss?
Yeah, execution, I think, was the key there. It's not a bad shot because it's a shot he plays all the time and he plays on a regular basis. Quinton de Kock, glove, shoulder, perhaps a little bit unlucky. Bavuma got one that skidded on, didn't play it well. Aiden Markram got a good ball. Heinrich Klaassen, he hit a half-tracker straight to the man at fine leg. That can happen. It happened in the Netherlands innings as well. So, it's not just happened to South Africa. It happened in the Netherlands innings as well. They had, I think it was Engelbrecht, hit one straight to fine leg. So, these things can happen. There was some really good bowling, though, and some great plans and some great processes along the way. And sometimes you got to bow your hat and say, you know what, the Netherlands were a better side than us today. We've got to go back. We've got to figure out what went wrong and we've got to put it behind us because we've got another one coming up in a few days' time.
I don't have a number on how many dot balls there were in that second innings, but clearly there seemed this unwillingness to take singles. Did they think the big shots will come at some point? Because we saw so many dot balls in that passage between the 8th and the 12th over as well.
I think they bought the field in and I think they just were very tight. It wasn't easy. I don't think particularly that they were looking to survive. They were looking to see if they found gaps. I think the Netherlands' plans were really good. I don't think South Africa is not a team. They take their singles, they run round. They're not the kind of team who sits on their haunches. It's just, as I said, we have to give Netherlands more credit. It's not so much just South Africa. And as I said, South Africa would look at it and said, it's a good thing for this to happen, the 3rd match of the tournament, not the 7th match or the 8th match of the tournament.
How tough is it to forget a loss like this?
Tough, very tough. But they've got to talk about it. And the one thing that you hope is going on now, it's not pulling everything apart. Why, how, where, what went wrong tonight, and we've got to work it out before the next game. What went wrong? They went away from their strength, which is batting first and putting big runs on the board. I don't think that was a bad decision, because with the rain around, and if there was more rain to come, you want to be batting second. They bowled really well for a good portion of that game, but they let it go at the back end. So it wasn't a total disaster. There was some certain parts of the game where South Africa looked like they were all over it. They just let it go at key times, took their foot off the gas a little bit, and the Netherlands played really well to get back into the game.
It's the little things that matter, Joy. 21 wides, 1 no ball when South Africa bowled. Maybe that number hurt them.
Of course it did. Of course it did. I think that hurt them, and that counter-attack, I think when the counter-attack happened, when Zimbabwe went mad, I think they didn't adjust well enough. They didn't look at it and said, look, he's taking a lot of risks, this is what we can do. I think they just kept bowling and thought that, they'd get him out.
Yep. Also, in the field, South Africa didn't look like South Africa.
Not for the full part, no. I mean, there were moments in the field that they looked good. There were moments that they weren't so good. It's not something you generally expect from a South African side. They will be better through the tournament. But, yeah, as I say, it's one of those nights where, in parts, I think it was taken away from them rather than they gave it away. I'd rather say that the Netherlands took it away from them at different times.
Yeah, well, these two teams, South Africa and Netherlands, will be in action on Saturday. Netherlands plays Sri Lanka in Lucknow. That's a morning game. And South Africa take on England. It's a tricky one for both teams.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to. The first close match of the tournament. Yeah. We've had good matches.
Yeah.
We haven't had one.
We haven't had a nail-biter as yet.
Well, on the points table, you will see that that the Netherlands have gotten off the mark, but a lot shall transpire. India on top with plus 1.8 to 1. South Africa had an opportunity to topple India from that top spot, but they've lost their first game in these 3 matches. They won 2, lost 1. New Zealand, India, the 2 unbeaten teams so far. Pakistan have lost 1. England shocked by Afghanistan, who will be feeling really good. They are at number 6. Bangladesh still searching for that mojo. Australia back on track, but they'll want to keep winning. Netherlands have given us a shock of the tournament. Sri Lanka yet to get off the mark. There's so much happening in this World Cup, Simon.
Yeah, there is, and I said it earlier, that I don't see any team going through unbeaten. I think if anyone, it could be India. They could go through unbeaten, but I just think that at some stage they might come up against a rampant side as well at some stage in the round robin. So points, big losses are going to hurt you. Net run rate will come into play for that 4th spot, maybe the 3rd spot as well. And this loss for the South Africans really does keep England and Australia right in the mix, because having lost games already themselves, it just keeps those people in around probably that 3rd and 4th spot right in the mix.
Is this result going to make everyone rethink their choice for top 4?
No, not really. I think, look, there's enough time. I think South Africa certainly are still a top 4 candidate. They're a definite top 4 candidate. But again, if they go and England has a big win against them, see, both ways that will be a crucial match. If England has a big loss, England's going to look really, it's going to be difficult for England. But if England win, well, then South Africa, suddenly that self-belief will hit an even bigger roadblock.
Well, the next match number 16, New Zealand will be in action against Afghanistan. Now, both these two teams have beaten the world champions England. New Zealand unbeaten so far, Afghanistan on a high as well. They play in Chennai, where, of course, spin will come into play. Which is the better spin attack, Simon, for you? Is New Zealand going to be wary of this Afghanistan spin attack?
They're always wary of the Afghanistan spin attack. I mean, Afghanistan have got a better spin attack because they've got 3 of them playing in the game. New Zealand only play 1.
Yep. And
then they use Mitchell as their Phillips as their part-timer. So it's not something that they won't have thought about. They generally play them well. I mean, one of the issues is Kane Williamson plays spin very well. He's obviously not going to be there. Do Afghanistan change anything? I don't think so. What they did, why would you change what happened against England? Ikram Ali Keel came into the side, did a brilliant job, wicket kept, got runs. They replaced Najibullah Zadran with him, I don't see anything else changing. Naveen ul Haq and Fazil Haq Faruqi. The one thing you thought about with Afghanistan was, could they get enough runs, and how do their seamers cope?
Yep.
Well, they've both been brilliant.
Yep.
They've both been really, really good. They swing the ball up front. You know, Fazil Haq Faruqi's got decent pace. Naveen has got those good changes. So they are actually bowling well. And that's the key to Afghanistan. Getting enough runs, but not just relying on that spin attack. Actually, the seamers doing some work as well. And that was what worked really well, I think, against England.
Yep, well, they bowled really well with the new ball. Under lights, Mujib bowled really well opening the innings. But would you say, let's not change winning combination?
Not at all. And Ikram, I was just looking at his record. And, just before this, till 2019, he was 2017 under-19 ACC tournament, scores a century in the finals.
Yep.
And Afghanistan, that's the first major title that they win.
Yep.
The under-19 title. After that, till 2019, he was a regular. Gets dropped, comes back only in 2023 in the ODI side. But he is that kind of player. When he gets going, he can really... So he's made a real change to that batting order. And I think the other thing is, even if you look at the India match, they put on, 280 odd?
Yep.
So in Dharamshala, they were 160, 170, which is what we always said. They're not very good at planning innings. Somewhere, something has changed. There is a bit of advice. It doesn't hurt that Ajay Jadeja is there in their ears. Probably talking to them a little bit, and he'd be very smart about it, not making them change their game plans, but talking to them about saying, how long can you bat, How do you play it over? So 280, even when they made that runs against India, you said, that's not what Afghanistan normally do. Normally, they get out for 190 trying to score 400.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is a different Afghan side. Then they got it right the next match as well. So this is an Afghan side that thinks they can bat. The only other thing I'll say is that you're saying that Chennai spin, not necessarily. No. I mean, it's one match, it really helped seamers. The other match looked a bit of more of a spinning surface. So this is not a surface that you're going to look at and decide until we know what pitch they're going to play on.
Kane Williamson, with some trouble with his thumb, will be out of action for 2 or 3 games, I've been told. There is, of course, Will Young. If we can pull up the New Zealand squad graphic, Simon can tell us how they go about figuring that change. Will Young comes back in?
Yeah, I think Will Young just slides back in for Williamson. They might move Rachin Ravindra back to 3. Will Young has been their sort of preferred opener leading into the tournament. It was only that innings from Ravindra that probably saw the move come. So Will Young back to the top with Conway. So left-right combination there, and then Ravindra at 3. And they'll keep everything else pretty much the same. Mitchell at 4, who's been brilliant in the last 18 months to 2 years. The skipper, Latham, at 5, and then Phillips at 6, with Santner coming in at 7. I don't think this is going to be very much like the first pitch. I think it'll be more like the second one. Yep. The only reason that the first pitch was like it was is because India were playing there, and they wanted it to turn against Australia. So that was the reason that surface was like that. They can grow grass in Chennai, I can tell you, because there was a bit of grass on the surface last time. And I think it'll be the same tomorrow. It's a fresh pitch. It's pitch number 6 tomorrow. So that is the one, I believe, in between India and the New Zealand game the other day against Bangladesh. So I think it's the one right in between those two.
Any updates on Saudi?
He's fit. He's fit and raring to go. I think the catching's the only little issue, but he can wear the brace while he's fielding. He just can't wear it while he's bowling. He's starting to feel the ball a lot better. He lost feeling in the end of his thumb. So in the nets for the first couple of days, he just couldn't feel the ball coming off the end of the thumb, which was a little bit of a worry for him, but he's got a lot more feeling back now. To me, he's not in the first 11 anyway. He replaces Matt Henry if Matt Henry gets injured.
Yep.
And if conditions are not conducive to quick bowling, he might get a game ahead of Lockie Ferguson, just because he's got a few more change-ups and things. But they prefer Lockie because he's got pace. And on that surface tomorrow, I'll be doing the pitch report, so I hope I've got it right already.
Simon, not as a broadcaster who's expected to be neutral, but as a Kiwi. I know your heart bleeds for New Zealand. Is it going to be win number 4?
Look, New Zealand will think it is, providing it's a truish surface. They should be better than Afghanistan. But again, if Afghanistan, as Joy said, if they put 280, 290, 300 on the board, it becomes difficult because their spinners are brilliant. They are good enough. So that's the key. What do New Zealand do? Do they want to bowl first? Do they want to bat first? If they give Afghanistan an opportunity to bat first, and they put a good score on the board, there's every chance they could roll New Zealand over as well.
Afghanistan enjoyed a lot of support at the Arun Jaitley Stadium. And so if you're in Chennai watching this show, this preview, make sure you are at the stadium cheering these two teams on. It could be quite a game. But before we wrap up, gentlemen, players to watch out for.
For me, definitely, Rachin Ravindra. I just like the way he plays. He's going to go back up the top of the order again. I think he's interesting. And I think if you look at the other side, crucial for them, I think the way Mujib bowled up front for them was really good. If he keeps up that form and he has a total to bowl for, that's the important thing. They have a total because, look, I still believe that's their best, no matter what the circumstances are. Afghanistan, inexperienced batting side, best bet is to go there and make the runs. Don't think of targets or anything. Just put runs on the board and try and restrict the team.
Two players for you?
Cricbuzz sets the tone for them with the bat. So if he gets off to a flyer, he will, he just gives them that belief. And he's the guy that can allow them to play a little quieter through the middle because he gets them off to a great start. So if he does that, he can take the game very deep and take it away from the bowling side. For New Zealand, they will, I think, they'll go hard with Lockie Ferguson. They'll try and get, a lot of short balls. I think they bowled something like 46% short balls against Bangladesh.
Okay.
And a lot of them are bowled by Lockie Ferguson at pace. So if there's any pace and bounce in the pitch, I expect Ferguson to be a key for New Zealand.
Time now to answer the Joy Factor question. Joy, all yours.
Okay, I've forgotten what the question is. Okay, of the 6-time all-time leaders in the statistical category, 5 of them, Gill, Malan, Kohli, Henderson and Babar Azam are playing in this World Cup. Who's the 6th and the top of this category? This is one-day international all-time batting averages, and the man on top is a good friend and an absolutely fantastic cricketer. He happens to be from the Netherlands. His name is Ryan ten Doeschate.
And has read many books as well.
Yes, and a batting average of 67. I mean,
wow.
It's an amazing batting average, and it's about over 35, 36 matches. It's not over 10 matches or 12 matches. It's not a...
Every day when you're not around, we get the graphic to do this for you. You've got to do this like in real life.
I feel like that, there's that County Cup ad with this gentleman in dark glasses. So I feel very...
So let's do this, all of us, for the winner. Who is it?
Who is it?
NSH11. Is that you by any chance, Simon?
I'm not allowed to enter.
Not Simon.
It's in the terms and conditions. I'm not allowed to enter.
Not if you don't tell us.
It's not me.
It's not him.
It's not me. Okay, what a day has it been. Netherlands can celebrate. I'm sure there's a party going on in Amsterdam as we speak. The team will celebrate, and who knows, they might cause a couple of more upsets at the World Cup. We're done for the day. It's time to go back home and sleep. You guys have a good night as well. And make sure you join us here at 1:30 on Cricbuzz Live. Good night.